the Free Kick Podcast, and I don't know about you guys that attended the United Soccer Coaches Convention, or maybe you guys listened to the last 7-8 episodes. I don't know how many I put out, but I'm still riding on that high from the convention, and I want to continue talking about the convention. And I thought to myself, who better to invite onto the podcast than the guy who invited me to attend the convention. He is a former player for Niagara and Drake University, as well as a former player for MASL side, Kansas City Comets, and he is currently the digital marketing specialist for the United Soccer Coaches organization. He is Absalom Solorio. Absalom, thank you so much for joining. How are you?
Good, doing well, doing good. Thank you for inviting me. It's always a pleasure.
Like I said, I'm still riding off the high. What about you? I mean, obviously, like you were one of the many people putting on this convention, and I know it was a week ago, but yeah, like I'm still pumped from that time.
Yeah, I know. I think a lot of the national staff is still, I think we were fortunate enough to go home and get a lot of sleep. I think with the convention running, there was not a lot of sleep that happened during, but there was a lot of work that was done through the national office behind the scenes. Because there's really a lot of work that gets done behind the scenes that you don't really get to witness. But I know our whole staff was running around, from our CEO all the way down to me and everyone else. But we're happy it's done with, because it's a big project for us. But I think we were all overall very pleased with how it went.
Yeah, absolutely. And we're getting into, I guess, some of the struggles or what goes into setting up a massive convention. Because I think I saw a number, like there was 14,000 people at the convention. That's a huge number of people.
Yeah, it is. It really is. And like we always say, I think it's, if not the largest gathering of soccer coaches in the world. There isn't really anything like it. And I know from previous years I've gone as a attendee, as a demo player, and now as a staff. So I've kind of seen the whole circle, of every kind of different viewpoint. So it's been interesting, but no, it's there's nothing like it.
You do that whole 360 tour. You go as just somebody that wants to check out the convention. You go as, you said, a player, and now you go working with United Soccer Organization. So you get the ins and out from all different perspectives. But like I said, you played soccer in college at Niagara and Drake University. And as I do with all my guests on the podcast, I always want to find out, how did they get into playing soccer? So how did you get into the sport of soccer?
I'd have to kind of backtrack even more. So growing up, my whole family has been a soccer family. Really, we got into it because of my dad. My dad was a soccer guy. He played in Mexico, and it was a way for us to bond. And it was just the sport that was in our family, and there wasn't any other sport that we played. It was just soccer, and that was it. So growing up, I played for my dad. We made a little rec team, and it kind of just became more serious. Found a couple clubs, and then when I was 13, I played at Sporting KC Academy. And so then I played there from U13 to U18. And through there, I was able to get scouted through Niagara University. And Miguel Rodriguez was the head coach there. Or he was the assistant coach, but he was the one that recruited me. And so it was kind of a no-brainer for Niagara University, because whenever they did, it was a package deal. It was, we'll take you and your brother, or we don't want one of you guys. We want both of you. So for me and my brother and my family, it made that decision very easy, as we were going to be moving far away from home. First time really leaving the house, but I think it gave my mom a sense of calmness, knowing that we would be together. And so when we made that trip, it was kind of, we signed, we had never visited. We never did like kind of that proper recruiting process that where you went to go visit. It was just too far. So we just signed, and we were like, all right, we're going to New York. So mind you, us not knowing the geographic of New York and how big it is, we were thinking, we're going to go to the city. So as we get there, we're like, we're talking to our friends. We're like, hey, like, why don't we make a trip up to New York City? It can't be that far. We're in New York. Well, they're like, hey, we're in upstate New York. Like, that's 8 hours away. So we were obviously closer to Canada. And I mean, that was a shock for us. We just didn't really look it up or didn't do any research. So we were just like, let's just go. So it was funny. It's been it's a joke now that we talk about.
It's awesome though that they said, we don't want just one of you. We want you and your brother. And that's cool that you guys were able to experience playing at a university together. How was that experience playing with him?
Good. And so we had played before. He also played in the Sporting KC Academy. So we had maybe 2 years that we played together. He's a year older than me. So growing up, I think we always played together. And then once kind of we turned 15, 16. He played his age and I played my age. But I think it was comfortable knowing that he was on the field with me. It was something that always helped me out because I would always try to obviously play to his level and always try to beat him. So just having him there helped me out a lot.
Who would you say is the better player, you or your brother?
I don't know. We had this argument a lot, and so I don't know. He's smarter. I think I'm more athletic, but he is smarter. He reads the game very well.
Yeah, it's funny because as my listeners know, we had Brendan Aronson and Paxton Aronson with the Philadelphia Union, and so I remember when Paxton was coming up through the Union's academy, their dad Rusty Aronson would always tell the story how like at Paxton's age, he was better at that age than Brendan Aronson was, and they would always tell the story how they converted their basement into like a little training pitch and everything. So they'd always have one-on-one competitions, and it's a shame that we never got to see both of them play for the Union's first team. But yeah, anytime they would be asked, okay, who was the better player, like Brendan would be like, "Oh, I was the better player," and Paxton's like, "Oh no, not so fast. I was the better player." And then you have the dad coming out saying, "Well, you know, Paxton was better at your age, Brendan, than you were." So regardless, I mean that's still awesome that you and your brother got to experience that. So, like I said, you went to Niagara, but then afterwards you transferred to Drake, correct?
So yeah, so I redshirted my sophomore year because I tore my ACL.
Ooh.
So then there was that sophomore year where I didn't play. And so after I graduated, I kind of knew that I wanted to move back closer to back home, and there was an opportunity at Drake that kind of came about, and so kind of I just took it. And so I played there. My original plan was only to play there 6 months because I just had that semester really because of my injury. So I was just gonna play there 6 months, and then that's when COVID happened. So the seasons got canceled. So it kind of threw everything in a weird spot, and the NCAA ended up granting everyone kind of that COVID year. So I mean I played that 6 months, but it didn't count for anything. It was just games, and then so I ended up playing another season. So I was really there for a year and a half, and I mean I was able to get my master's through that program. So very fortunate, I guess, that COVID did happen because I was able to finish my master because otherwise I think I would have just played those 6 months and then gone out.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
so it was a good year and a half. I mean, I think we had a very good run, but we just kind of fell short in a couple of the games. I mean, our conference was really good. We had Missouri State in our conference, which in the last couple of years they've gone like undefeated in our conference, and they made a run in the NCAA tournament. And then we also had Loyola. So I mean, there were some good teams playing in the MVC, and now they have even more talented teams with UIC coming into that conference.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And the Midwest soccer, I'm definitely not as familiar as I am with the East Coast. Obviously, and being on the East Coast, follow University of Maryland soccer a ton, and I know they have a fantastic program. I know going out Midwest, Indiana has a fantastic team as well. Funny enough, before Brendan Aronson signed with Union's first team, they offered him a full ride scholarship to go to Indiana. But you know, when you have a team offering you to play professionally, you're going to go professional over playing college. So
Like any kid, that's the dream. And so if someone offers you that, I think yeah, you'd have to jump on it.
yeah, and now you look at Brendan playing with Leeds United in the Premier League. He definitely made the right choice. But the last point I want to talk about before we get into the convention and everything is, like I mentioned, after university, you played for MASL side, and we had JP Delacamera on, and I wasn't sure how we were going to take that conversation with JP, but I was like, you know what, let's just talk indoor soccer. I feel like everybody's going to talk about his broadcasting career. Let's talk indoor soccer. And there was a fantastic conversation we had with JP, and you played a couple seasons with the Comet. Is that correct?
Yeah, so it was. I mean, I played one season, and so right after kind of I graduated, I was stuck in this like limbo, not knowing what I wanted to do and looking for jobs and kind of trying to figure out. So I kind of just started training with the Comets, and my brother had also played there. He played there for 2 years or 2 seasons, and so the ownership kind of had known me growing up, and I had gone to all their games, so I kind of went out to training, and one thing evolved, and they ended up giving me a contract for a season, or it was for 2 seasons. And so it was kind of like it bought me time to figure out what I want to do with my life, because I think as a college athlete, once you get done with playing, you're kind of stuck with now what do I do next? And I think that's a lot. I think as as we start to see people kind of start to realize that you kind of leave something that you've done your whole life. So it's not easy to completely stop playing. So I played there for 6 months, and that's that. I mean, it was a great season. We also had a run at it. We were played in the semis. So it was good. I mean, I really enjoyed it. The organization is professional, top class. I think they're one of the more well-run organizations in that league, and they take care of their players. And I mean, they get a lot of fans. I think we had like 5,000 fans almost at one of our games. So it's a good number of people that go out to those games.
Yeah, it is, especially for indoor. I mean, like you said, you have Sporting Kansas City in the area, and that's one thing I like about indoor soccer is like when outdoor soccer MLS ends, then the indoor season picks up, and so it's like, okay, people that want their soccer fill, well, they have indoor right there. I'm curious, though, what was it like playing with Leo Gibson? I mean, he's a player who scored over 300 goals. I believe now he's coaching the club. I mean, he's a legend in the indoor game.
Yeah, and I mean he's still playing. I think one thing that man knows how to do is score. So he yeah, I mean it's crazy the gift that he has to finding the back of the net. There's nothing really like it. So yeah, he's good. He's class.
Absolutely. And JP and I, we were talking. He said that he thinks like when you look at the two teams in MLS, in his opinion, he said that he thinks like the teams that are doing it right are Milwaukee Wave and the Baltimore Blast with all the championships that they have. They've been around forever. And I did agree with him, but I was like, if you want to look at like playing surfaces, I think hands down the Comet and the Wave have the best playing surface. You guys have that blue carpet while the Wave have the black carpet. Like everybody else is so generic, but I'm like, man, you guys are like really sticking out with that blue carpet there in Kansas City.
Yeah, and it's nice. I mean, the arena in itself too it's big, but it gets full, so it gets full. So I mean, the atmosphere is crazy nice, and yeah, like you said, the blue turf is pretty cool as well.
You said you grew up playing in the Sporting Kansas City Academy. Would you say they're your favorite MLS team or your favorite soccer team in general, or do you have a team that you prefer to follow other than Sporting Kansas City?
No, I think yeah, for sure, Sporting KC is my team. I tend to go out to all the games just because there is that personal connection to them, and so they're having a lot of my teammates that have gone through and are now playing with the first team. So it's nice to watch them play. But yeah, for sure, Sporting fan.
Absolutely. How mind blown were you when reports came out that Sporting Kansas City were close to signing Cristiano Ronaldo, or at least he was entertaining the offer? I mean, can you imagine that Ronaldo in Kansas City? I can't.
No, that'd be crazy. I think whenever we first saw that, like, I think we were shocked, but I think it was good for Sporting. Good that they have at least offered him something just to get the buzz around it that no other MLS team had at that moment. So I would no, I don't. I mean, I can't imagine him in Kansas City. I don't think he would have done well here.
Yeah, I know. I mean, for me, I'm like Peter Vermees and Cristiano Ronaldo. Like, there is no way you could tell me that these guys aren't going to get into it. Like, Peter Vermees is a no nonsense guy, and Ronaldo kind of likes to do his own thing. It seems like he doesn't like to be told what to do. Like Peter Vermees, I feel like would not put up with that. But then an interview comes out that Peter Vermees is like, "Yeah, I want this to be done." I'm like, "Oh man, I would have loved to have paid to see these two just have one awesome
Yeah,
fight."
yeah. I mean, yeah, like we said, I think was it more for the media, maybe. But I mean, he entertained it, so who knows? I mean, he's Ronaldo's making a lot more money that now than he would have been making here. So
Yeah, that is for sure. I mean, you guys would have had to give him, I feel like part of the franchise or something just to get him here. I mean, it would have been so crazy to see like Ronaldo in the Midwest. Like I would picture Ronaldo in LA or down in Miami, not in the middle of the United States. That's so crazy to me. But I guess we'll never know how true it was that he was close to signing. I mean, I don't know. Maybe he gets done in Saudi Arabia and says, "All right, I want to come to MLS now." I mean, will Kansas City be interested then? I mean, I guess time will tell. But let's go ahead and talk about yeah. But let's go ahead and talk about the United Soccer Coaches Convention. And as I mentioned, you're the digital marketing specialist. So how did that all come about for you working with the organization?
yeah, so I think kind of like as I mentioned earlier, after the season was getting close to an end. So I mean, like people know, the MISL doesn't only last like for 6 months. So then after that, people either are coaches, college coaches or they kind of have another job. So I just started looking around and trying to find what it was that I was going to do. And one thing that I kind of came about, like I knew I wanted to stay within the soccer world. And so my undergrad was in marketing, my master's was in master's in communications. And so, I mean, I kind of just found this digital marketing role and I just kind of applied, like not knowingly. I had applied for a couple other jobs and I'd interviewed for a couple other ones. So I just found it and I knew it was soccer related. So I was like, let's just give it a go and we'll try it. And I mean, I interviewed with Brandon and Bailey and, I mean, they walked me around the offices and our offices are it's a nice setup. It's down in Union Station. And, I mean, it's just all about soccer. There's just soccer everywhere, old time jerseys and history in it. So it was cool. And so leaving the interview, I mean, I was just kind of, we'll see what happens, you know? And so, I mean, I got the call from Brandon and he ended up offering me the role. So I took it and I've now been there like 7 months. So it's been really, really good. I think I've enjoyed it.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's kind of hard talking about, a convention that we all attended, and you're like, well, yeah, it's a convention, but it's also my job. So it's like you want to find the right words to say, right? Because you don't you work there. We all know it as a convention, everything that we attend, but you're like, yeah, this is kind of where I work, and I don't want to badmouth that place. But you mentioned only being there 7 months, so this was your first convention that you actually got to be a part of. Any challenges that you personally face that you could potentially share?
One of the biggest challenges I think was just trying to prepare for everything. I think it's like as a attendee is so different, and as you just don't really see the preparation that goes into it. And I think there was a lot of staff that was new, but I think that biggest challenge is just not knowing what you don't know. Like you can prepare for all you know, but if you once you get there, then you just kind of have to work with it. And so I mean, for me, one of my biggest role was kind of a podcast role, like you mentioned. So for me, it was trying to recruit shows. There was a lot of shows that, I mean, one, didn't really know about the convention or didn't see the benefit of coming. So it was hard to try to find all those shows. And then there was shows that would have to drop out, so we would have to try to fill them. And even like the last day, there was a couple of shows, literally like the day of, that they were like, hey, we can't make it for this reason. So we had to try to turn around and try to fulfill those spots because we did want it to be a good experience for everyone else and for all the attendees.
Yeah, that was going to be my next question. So, I mean, like, how did that come about for you, just reaching out to shows and everything? And I think I counted 23 were on the list. I'm not sure if all 23 showed up. Like you said, some people like backed out at the end, but there was definitely, it seemed like 20 shows. So how did that go about for you? Like researching, okay, who should we invite and all that?
Yeah, so it was in total 27 shows were on the list. And so, but for me, it was just I did a lot of research. My biggest thing is I wanted to get a wide variety of shows, and so I wanted to really hit on people that were talking about the MLS. There was a group that was talking about the NISA, and then there was those smaller podcasts that just talk football. There was also a show that I wanted to bring from Mexico that they had previously came before as attendees, and they had their goalkeeper podcast. So I really just I did some research and would listen to people's podcasts and find different shows that were talking about soccer, that were talking about the union, how I came across yours. And so, yeah, I mean, it was really just a lot of listening to podcasts and seeing who they were talking to and if they were active. That was my biggest thing, just making sure they were active to talking about football.
Yeah, exactly. You don't want to show that, okay, one episode every couple months, or maybe not even, in the past they were active, but now they haven't been active for a year. Like people, when I was at the convention, like people were like, well, what's the biggest advice you can give to us for our show? And I'm like, yeah, just be consistent. I feel like consistency goes so far. It doesn't matter, if it's a podcast. Like I feel like that's just everyday advice. If you're consistent with something, you're gonna get better at it. It's gonna come easier to you. And yeah, I mean, you're right. I mean, there was a ton of different variety of shows there. The one you talked about, Nisa, I think protagonists, I think they were called. They cover a lot of grassroots soccer, and I didn't even know who these guys were, but I had a couple of my friends on the Philadelphia market. They're like, "Oh, these guys are excellent! Like they're covering just the grassroots of all grassroots soccer. Like they're helping grow the sport. And so, I mean, that's a great job to you just doing this research. And I feel like some listeners are like, oh man, that's a great job. You get paid to listen to podcasts and then figure out who to bring. But like, you're right. You had a wide variety of shows there. And I think the convention podcast row came together fantastically, where I think you were like to me, like, oh, this could have been a better setup because the people that didn't go to the convention, like you had to walk by podcast row. So it's like, it stood out there. You guys had SiriusXM in the best spot possible where, okay, you see all the banners and everything like, oh, dang, SiriusXM's here. Like that's pretty dope. And then you have podcast row on both sides of the hallway. And yeah, I mean, it worked out fantastic. And I was mind blown. Like, honestly, like my whole mindset going into this, I know you sent a list of potential people to get onto the podcast and everything, very helpful. But I was like, you know what? I feel like it's going to be a lot harder for people if you go up to them in person and say, hey, you want to come on my podcast? I feel like it's a lot harder for them to say no than through email. Like they don't have to respond to an email. So I was going up to all these union coaches that I know from covering the team. They're like, yeah, I'll come on. And then, I saw people there that I didn't even know were going to be at the convention. Jimmy Conrad. I was like, are you serious?
Yeah.
Like, I love this guy. Like, and I think he was only there for a day. I was like, oh, I would have loved to have had Jimmy on the podcast, but he was only there for a day. Jordan Angeli was there covering the NWSL draft. She's a broadcaster for the Columbus Career. I've had her on the show a couple times. You had Robson from Manchester United. I didn't know he was going to go there. He was on a panel with Glenn Crooks. I was like, wow, there's a lot of people like in this list that you didn't show. Or I would look at the panels that you guys had listed on the app. I was like, okay, I might be able to get this guy, but a lot more people showed up than I knew were coming to this convention. And I think for me, I was like, that's what mine blew me like farther than saying, okay, yeah, I had a feeling all the union guys were going to be here, or like JP and Alexi Lawless. But like I mentioned, Jimmy Conrad, somebody like that, I was like, this is freaking awesome.
Yeah, they're like, it's very hard to try to predict who's going to go. And so when I send you that list, those are the presenters that are willing to maybe go on podcasts. But yeah, I mean, there was a ton of people. I know like the Syria people brought Nesta. And so, I mean, they broadcasted live from CBS from the halftime of Juventus game at the convention. So, I mean, yeah, it's the place to be for soccer people. And like you mentioned, I think it was really, the location was prime because people were walking by. And I think whenever Alexi Lalas came and JP, like there was a buzz around it and everyone kind of just surrounded that space within Podcast Row.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, people were like, is that Alexi Lawless or is that JP? Like, yeah, that was definitely them. I mean, it kind of worked out better. I mean, I'm still uploading podcast interviews and everything. Didn't want to upload everything. I tried the first couple of days. Okay, I'll give a couple episodes every day, but I'm like, okay, maybe I did too much. Let me backtrack and put out a new episode every other day or every couple days. And so once this comes out, I think your episode's going to come after the goalkeeper coach of Philadelphia Union, Phil Wetton. So after that, I think I'm done. But I mean, just so mind blown, like you said, by the people that were there, where people saw, wait, is that so-and-so? Is that so-and-so? And then people would start coming over to Podcast Row. I mean, yeah, it was fantastic. And then having Union fans come over like, oh, I didn't know your podcast exists. Well, number one, shame on you. Like, you should know that this podcast exists, but it was cool just connecting with people for the very first time, or I had people reach out to me via email and like, hey, I'm coming to the convention. I'm going to stop by and everything. So it was cool just seeing old friends, seeing new friends. And like I said, I mean, seeing people that I had no idea who were going to be on that list. But did you have a chance? Obviously you were working the convention. Did you have a chance to sit on any of the panels?
No, unfortunately I didn't. I think I only got to see one session. And I was just running around either through Podcast Row or we had an exhibit, a booth, and then media room. So no, I didn't. I wish I would have. I really it's just unfortunate that I didn't, but between everything, I only got to see really one session, and everything else was just managing my time.
Yeah, that's I did not manage my time the very first day I got there. It's like set up, then it's like let's get interview after interview. So I only ate like one time during the day. And so when I woke up Friday, I had a massive headache. I didn't drink water at all on Thursday. I was like, like when you're just like going crazy, I think you're so overwhelmed by everything. You're like, okay, I got this much time. Let's try to get this person on. I'm like, okay, I cannot do this again because if I do this again, like there's a chance that I'm not going to be able to come back for the rest of the day. So I was like, okay, put time on my schedule to go eat, make sure I'm drinking water and I'm good to go. But yeah, I mean, what a fantastic event you guys put on. I thought Exhibit Hall was outstanding. Like you mentioned, the Serie A guys were there, seeing Nesta, mind blown. Freaking Nesta at the United Soccer Coaches Convention. I know he played in MLS for Montreal, I believe, for a season or two. And now to see him not in his uniform, not in his Milan uniform, like this is freaking dope. And just seeing all these different companies there that had different innovation ideas. I mean, you said it. This is the place where you want to be. If you're a soccer fan, you don't need to be a coach. You don't need to be on podcasts. You don't need to be an owner of a club. Like if you're a soccer fan, like this is
Yeah.
100% the place to be. And coming up in January of next year, it's going to be in Anaheim, correct?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, we're going to Anaheim. And so the preparation for that has already started. So
Oh my gosh. So you guys get done a convention. It's like, all right, let's go ahead and start figuring out who we want to speak at this convention. I'm sure,
yeah.
setting up the whole convention center. I mean, I remember your CEO, Jeff Van Dusen, I believe that's
Mhm.
who it is. He was
Yeah.
posting videos of like the 18 wheelers you guys are filling up in Kansas City going to Philadelphia. I'm like, wow, like you guys are filling this to the brim. And then the trucks get to Philadelphia and he's posting videos of them setting up the convention. And then you get there and you're like, wow, like this place got turned from a convention center to like a soccer center so
Yeah.
fast. I mean, everything turned out fantastic.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, I mean, we just got done unloading the vans on Fridays. Or no, on Thursday. Thursday we unloaded all the vans with all the gear that we had sent that came back. But no, it is crazy because we get there on Tuesdays or Mondays. We got there on I got there on Tuesday, and it's you start seeing things built, but it's like there's still a lot that needs to be done, and then boom, all of a sudden when exhibit hall opens at 5, everything's done, and it's like, how did this happen so fast? But no, yeah, it's a large event that a lot of people on the national staff put in work. Um, and so, yeah, I mean, the national office deserves all the credit because they really, I mean, the work that gets put into it behind the scenes from all the national offices, it's a lot. It's a lot of work that gets put into it.
At the beginning. You got the whole experience now as attending the convention, now working to the convention. So you see everything that goes into it. And again, gonna repeat it again, but I mean, if you guys didn't go to it in Philadelphia, shame on you because it was literally right in your backyard. As most of you guys that listen to the podcast are based in Pennsylvania, and so now if you guys want to go to the convention, you got to fly out to Anaheim. But you know, as successful as it was this year, I'm sure next year, I mean, it's going to be potentially even better. And look, it's going to be out in California, so who knows who's going to show up in Los Angeles next season. And I can't wait for it to be next season in Anaheim, go out to California for the very first time. But again, just props to you and the whole staff for setting up this convention in such a timely manner too. And I'll share this story right here where I wrote some of my thoughts and everything of the convention. I remember getting an email from you, and I was like, "Is this like spam? Is this for real?" Like nobody, like I think you messaged me through my website, and I was like, I barely get anybody messaging me through this website. I was like, okay, this like the people that would message would all be spam, but I was like, this looks legit, but it also might not be legit. So I was like, okay, let me do research. And I had a family friend when they had the convention here in Baltimore a few years ago. He mentioned going to the convention. So I was like, I do remember this name. But I was like, you know what? Let me go ahead and reply back and everything. I was like, this is legit. And so I'm so glad that this was not a spam email like I normally get from the website. And just so happy that you invited me. And like I said, just making new friends and seeing old friends. I think that's key right there with the convention.
Yeah, no, I got to read that story. So I mean, there's a lot of stories like that. I mean, me that I don't know about, but it's awesome to get to see it and get to read it. And yeah, like you mentioned, this is really, I mean, it's really a place for people to connect and to reunite and just be with each other. Like you mentioned, you made a lot of new friends and you got to see a lot of friends. And I mean, I know like for some of the podcasters, like this was the first time that they had actually ever met, and so they shared that story with me, and I was like, that's crazy, but that's awesome. That's awesome that this is the first time that you got to meet, and you got to do it within here with United Soccer Coaches. So it's cool.
Yeah, I mean, doing it in a live event, I mean, like, you can see I'm in my room, so I'm so used to sending a Zoom invite to somebody, and now actually doing a live event, having people come up to the booth and everything and interview them. I mean, it's a world-class experience, something that I'm so thankful that I got to experience, and that's all credit to you. And I look forward to the name of presenters you guys are going to have next year, because I mean, you had a lot of top class people this year, so I can't wait to see who you guys have on the list next year. But for people that aren't following you on social media, Absalom, where can they follow you?
Yeah, so I'm on Instagram and Twitter. Instagram is Absalom_Solorio, and then my Twitter is the same thing, Absalom_Solorio. So or LinkedIn. I'm on LinkedIn a lot.
That definitely helped me. LinkedIn, get some information on you. So, and like as I shared that story, I was like, okay, let me see if this person's legit. And yeah, sure enough, your LinkedIn profile picture comes up. So, what a terrific app. And again, thank you so much for the invite. Thank you for coming onto the podcast. And yeah, for people that are listening, like you got to go to Anaheim next year. Like in Anaheim, it's not going to be. It could potentially be cold, but it's not going to be 40 degrees weather like it was in Philadelphia. So to be in the sunshine of California next season, it's going to be a terrific event, and I can't wait for it. But if you guys aren't following the podcast on Twitter, Instagram, or Facebook, follow at Free Kick Pod, wherever you get your podcasts, The Free Kick. Check out the website, thefreekick.net. And again, just hopefully you guys enjoy these mini-series. I think this was the perfect way to end the mini-series, the guy who invited me from it all. And be sure you guys are following Absalom on social media. And I guess people can hit you up. They have questions too, right? That's fine.
For sure. Yeah, I'll answer all the questions. And I mean, thank you for coming, and thank you for having me on the podcast. I think, like you just mentioned, it is a great way to kind of end your series. And I mean, what better way to get content than at United Soccer Coaches with all the people you would ever want to interview in person. So I'm glad Podcast Row went as well as it did, and all the podcasters, everyone I've spoken to, they had good reviews and they had a great time and were able to get great content. So I mean, I think we're excited for next year. I don't know what we're gonna do yet, but we have some good things coming, I think, with just the whole convention.
Like I said, that's it for our mini-series of the United Soccer Coaches Convention. We'll come out here with an interview or just a review episode or something for the Philadelphia Union. We'll switch back to that. But again, hopefully you guys enjoy these mini-series episodes as much as I did recording them. Again, thank you so much, Absalom, for the invite and United Soccer Coaches Convention. Be sure you guys are following Absalom on social media. Follow United Soccer Coaches on social media as well to stay updated for all the latest information. But until then, my name is Todd, and this is the Free Kick Podcast.